The elements that we're going to be covering are all based around this concept of supporting remote CPD. And in the elements there, well, this isn't a one-off. I've done this a couple of times now, and I just want you to know that we're going to be doing several of these webinars. They're going to be every single week. We're going to go 2 or 3, so you can extend it into a lot of things, because not only are we doing this webinar, I've also done a lot of one-to-ones afterwards. So to get the most into it, I'm going to follow it in this following style. I'm going to be talking a lot, unfortunately, during the next half hour, 40 minutes, trying to maximize an opportunity, but I do have breaks, and I will be keeping an eye on the chat with myself and some of my colleagues who'll be looking at the chat. And as you see, I'll just be coming across all the time, saying hello to people like David, Joe, and Laura, and obviously answering your questions as they come across as well. So please keep them coming. At times, I will be scribbling over different parts of the screen as well, so you can see, highlight different items, and I will jump off into different parts of the internet as well, just to show you some of the best practice items that I'm looking at. I'm always really welcoming the invitation, or sorry, I'm always offering the invitation for people to drop comments on the chat, because that helps me understand what kind of points of need, or if there's an extension of something you'd like me to cover, please do that. And there's going to be a follow-on one-to-one link, and I'm going to be sending video extensions as well. And what I mean by sending video extensions is some of these elements that I've spoken about, I've actually recorded videos for already, because they're very common questions that people ask, FAQs that I'll be able to share with people to help you. And obviously, if there is an idea that sparks with you, it's something that you'll share with a colleague. And my colleague Sarwar is going to be online. He's going to be sharing some of the items as we come and go through them as well. So you'll have a lot of support all the way through. Now, this webinar focus is really going to be looking at the types of training that you may need, some of the areas of focus and development, and some of the external offerings and the variety that's going to be available with some of the providers as well. Stuff that you can use straight away today and stuff that you can use after. We're going to be talking a lot as well about the use of using video for training, how you can quickly capture video. You can use video in what I call benefit-led training. And we're going to be looking at the 4 stages to training in a practical, real example at the end. Now, again, this is the 4th time I've done this webinar. I've been really lucky. A lot of join me on them, and it's been really good after the one-to-ones to really go through need cases and use cases. And one thing I can say is so many schools are in exactly the same situation, so it's really important to make sure that we're all there and making sure that people are aware of some of the difficulties that other people have. And ultimately, at the end, what we're going to is the mantra behind all of you are best placed to create your CPD. And towards the end, we're going to help you create your own CPD training in minutes. So you're going to have a real strong focus in making sure, and that's one of the promises I have, you'll have tools and ideas to actually start creating training, because I believe very strongly, and I've seen very strong, context relevant training is the best type of training. When you take off the shelf training, it serves one purpose, but when you actually have context-based training, it's going to help a great deal. And that's the kind of thing that we're going to focus on. So just to give you a little background of why we know what we do, as I said, my name's Leon, and I was a former head teacher here in the UK. I was fortunate to work with my team to take a school to outstanding. And essentially, we were very cash strapped. So we didn't actually have any money. We didn't have an example of a situation where we could do much. So we had to use technology in a very innovative way to try and help draw, blow up, grow, make successes in different areas that we wanted to make success. And since leaving being a head teacher in 2016, we started to train people online. First, it was students. I teach nearly 300,000 students around the world. And more proudly now, it's actually coming up to 8,500 teachers in different schools, and we have a 95% completion. We work all over the world, so some of the experience that we have is not just here in the UK, but we're also looking at how things are developed remotely in India and Vietnam and Australia as well, and a lot in the Middle East. And we do a lot of short courses, and we have to follow and track the training of that, but we also do everything up to QTS as well. So we give people QTS through working with universities, and we have to track and observe them remotely. So a lot of what we're saying to you here isn't theoretical. We've been doing this for years. We're quite good at it. We want to share a lot of that best practice with you and give you the tools to empower you to do the same thing. Part of it is obviously going to be the logic, the concept, the philosophy, and another part is really going to be about how you develop and use certain tools that either fit the way you want to work or fit the current setup that you have in your school. Now, the last item I'll say on that is we've been selected to develop one of the first schools to actually work with and develop the Super Teacher School program. In the North, there's only 6 regions accepted for it, or 6 schools accepted for it. And we were the first with one of the schools in Rotherham. So again, strengthening the idea of why we know what we're talking with some of what's going to be coming about. Now, the first area that we're going to look at is talking about the current situation in time that we're in, because you can't look at anything without looking at its context and understanding where you are and what you're doing and why you're doing. So our current phase really is replicating what we're doing in schools online, rather than actually trying to innovate in any way what we're doing looking at online. So it's a key focus to remember that in this period, there's a lot of play, there's a lot of newness, there's a lot of change, and there's a lot of space. As people moved online over the last couple of weeks, we started to work with students, we started to work with teachers. A lot of people felt that they had model, standards they had to keep, etc., because of the formalized nature of how we normally work within schools. And no one really gave themselves a break to get things. So I spoke to a lot of heads and they wanted to get it perfect first time. Now I'll just take you, and obviously I know it's a cliche, but if you were to say that, you'd obviously realize you were setting yourself up for failure. So you understand that we're in this situation where it's fine at the moment to be replicating. We are looking at doing that, and that's where we are, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with it. But ultimately, we want to get to a space where we are innovating, and you're innovating in your school. Now, it's a complete knee-jerk reaction because of the speed at which we all moved in line, and we focused on what I call access first. And access first is really about letting people have something to do. It doesn't mean that it's good. It doesn't mean that it's relevant. It doesn't mean that it's actually going to be anything forthright and long-lasting, but they just had something. It was there to access. And as I say again, this is completely the best thing you can take from any of your training initiatives at the moment. And I'd say there are actually some good practice out there as well. But just as a leveler, think of what you've done in this first instance as a game. You've moved across that threshold and you're starting now to think about online. The reason you're here is because you obviously want to learn something about online training initiatives. So congratulate yourself on that. And again, I'll stress, do not worry about perfection. So many schools are actually looking to get it right and know exactly what to do when you can't. In exactly the same way as your school grew and took a life on its own in its building sense, so it will grow and take a life on its own as well with regards to its online sense as well. And that's going to be no more so than your training. But it's a wonderful opportunity, and we're going to be stressing those throughout. A 5-step phase, and it's really a kind of a reflection improvement on anything, whether it's the building of a new car, the building of a computer, etc. Everything goes through these 5 stages, well, to do it properly. So first, the need is derived. For some reason, right, a need comes about and we need to move forward and grow from there. And after we've trialed a bit of it, and that's exactly where we are now, we will start to gain a few insights. And that's kind of in guide, that's where we feel we are with you. We can actually give you some insights at this point, so you can start to look at different things. Then you're going to move on collectively to being in a situation where you trial items, see what works, see what doesn't work, see what adapts, see what takes, see what sticks. And the parts that are successful, you're going to then start to refine. And in the innovation world, when we're looking at different things, what we start to do then is we start to share. We start to share things as a commercial product. We start to share things as best practice. And obviously with the school, we're going to actually have our culture now, our online culture for training, and we're going to be moving through things. Now, the reason I bring you that item from some of the innovation items that we're looking at, or from the way we currently look at derivative innovation, is because you are in a hugely innovative time. I know it's going to sound silly for me to say, with so many of you working extra hours, being stressed, so many responsibilities. But do remember too that this is a huge time for innovation. You have carte blanche, a blank paper to start your online training afresh. And hopefully what I'm going to share with you over the next 20, 25 minutes, both in terms of techniques, both in terms of ideas, and also in terms of implementation, is going to help you get this part right, where you're looking at the insight and trying to understand and refine and define what you're looking to do. It's going to make. Now, you have to be pleased about one thing as well. The UK online culture, because it's so behind, we are not going to be assessed on what we do. We don't have a judge culture online. I'm sure you saw the piece where Amanda Spielman as well said it's just not enough. There's remit or capacity to actually judge what teachers are doing online for their students, and even more so for their teachers, but that will come in time. The UAE has already put that into law, that now schools will start to be assessed on how they're delivering to students, and it will also be something where we look at how they're delivering as well to teachers in time. But because we're in this on a time, and I've got contact with an extent, bearing in mind everything I've said before, there's a real chance with anything that you're doing and operating, and you get a chance to lead. And one of the best ways I can say you do this, if you imagine you had a good idea for a lesson, if you had a good idea for an activity, if you wanted to do something, you have to wait normally, if you're a teacher, for that moment to roll around in class. You're like, right, I'm going to try that on Wednesday, period 5 with class X. Danny's going to love it, and you really have to try it. And that's where you kind of put it up there, and as we said earlier, when we're looking to try and refine, we put something up there so we think to ourselves, does it sink or swim? With online items, it's so much easier to do. And so I remember anything that I'm giving you here, even if it's on your own SL team series or if it's wider, test on your own and test with friends or test with colleagues. So if I say to you that you might want to use Loon by the end of this, give it a go and you can try it. If I say that there's going to be something like countdown timer, you can use it and trial it internally. Set up those little groups here where you can innovate internally to say, how would that work? And you can do that from being a million miles away from each other on Zoom calls, on Hangouts, on webinars, where you can share the best practice and do it. So just remember you're in that period, because too many people, when you're trying to just replicate, you forget that if you do what you've always done, you're going to get the same results. Just because you put it online doesn't make a difference. difference. If I make you a terrible meal, it doesn't matter if I put it on the fanciest plate in the world or if I put it in a really horrible, ugly takeaway. It's going to taste the same. You can't keep doing the same thing. So think about different pieces of technology and how you're going to use it. And you've got that chance now to really revel in this innovative time and the space in which you want to be. Now, the way that we're going to be looking at training is going to be in different stages and different phases. And one of the key ones that we want to think about here is what kind of training is needed. And that's something that's generally quite overlooked. Most of the training that we see in schools or that's done in schools or that I have the pleasure of actually sitting in on, or the misfortune sometimes of sitting in on, is what I would call based around the government. Something that is stressed to us simply because it's a mandate or it's safeguarding or it's an item hugely important, but that seems to be what all our Insight and all our Twilights are about. I want you to actually just think about what kind of training that you're actually offering and doing. Think about the school need in places and situations. Well, if I was trying to improve things within my school, not necessarily just because I have to tick this box over here, what kind of things would I do? And obviously you're thinking that from your leadership point or your leadership responsibility, but probably most importantly, and this is where I like to develop all our training, and obviously we think about it, is the learn need. Do you know what your head of science would like for training right now? Do you know what your assistant teachers in the drama department want right now? Do you have any idea what some of the colleagues and your senior leadership want right now? Maybe, maybe not. But I'm quite sure you'll have a very good idea of what you have to do. And so it's really thinking about what training in lockdown, because of the personalization, the flexibility in which you can give it, you really have to think about all of your staff as learners, not people who are there to just absorb what the government might give them, or stress or push for them. It's important, I'm not going to say it's not, but so much of what we do is not really based around the learner. And in this time, you've got so much more space and ability to actually think about the flexibility around it. And then obviously under that, there's the levels of training that you're giving anyone. And that's one of the crimes that we all have suffered. And obviously, I was not immune to it at all. When I was ahead, we get everyone in the same room, we give them the same training at the same level. It's completely anti-differentiation training. And it's quite ironic considering how much we focus on personalization and differentiation for our students. But for our staff, we're just like, there you go, take it, and we'll never actually look at it again. So just think about that. If you were running this as a class, and obviously we've all been teachers, most of us have been teachers, you have to think about what kind of lockdown's needed and how you're actually going to personalize it and deliver it to the learner. Especially even knowing how different rooms are going to be set up for different COVID style responses, depending on how you're going to do different things at different times. A very obvious thing, but I hope it's actually something that you actually think, right, well, what levels would I do this at? Now, training in schools in general, again, we're just looking at the context, looking at the base, looking at everything. Having worked with hundreds of schools now and having gone into the ground with dozens and dozens of schools and worked closely with them, I can tell you that best content, like the sharing of the PowerPoints, the stuff that's on there, or who they could get to do something, best content is in abundance. I wouldn't say it's all cutting edge. There's probably really unique and well-placed people like university professors, and obviously that's kind of distilled to us through companies like Osiris Education, who can give us, cutting edge stuff. But best content can be found in every school. You'll always find it. But this best practice and extended best practice is rare. What do I mean by that? Now, I use the phrase there, best practice, but really what I should have put is extended best practice, because when we're putting forward training or when we're expecting a result of training, a lot of what we're doing forward is a one-off. I'm going to do one session, and no matter how good it is, I expect you to be able to absorb and load that and have it, et cetera, et cetera. And so in that space, it's kind of like I saw something that wowed me. I saw something interesting me, but very rarely do we have the structure or the coordination in place afterwards to actually follow and track how was that used or manifested after 6 weeks? What was the avenue for me being able to kind of call back to that and drive from it? Well, you shared the PowerPoint with me, but it's dead. It's not something that's really living that I converse with and I move with. So we can't extend the best practice. So that best practice is locked in like, hey, look what I can do. Now, I don't know how many of you will agree with me, and I'm sure there are some schools that have excellent best practice, but the training schools generally is one-off. It can be very, very good, but it is not extended in any way. And that's kind of one of the things that we think of when we're looking at our online training. And the thinking behind our online training is how do we get it to, and these humps that I'm drawing here that look like a really, really terrible caterpillar or a really, really bad set of mountain ranges, you're trying to think about this over time. Now, whether that is going to be in terms of week 1 and then week 2 and week 3, it's fine, that's up to you. Whether it's going to be in something in terms of half term 1, half term 2, half term 3, or lesson 1, lesson 2, lesson 3, you have to think about that. because most schools are very restricted in the approach. And that is partly to do with a lack of planning and focusing on what I said earlier about making sure that we're just doing the essentials. But another part of it is just due to time constraints. When we have 2 inset days and we have a few twilights and they're not compulsory, well, what are we really getting across to people? So you think about this opportunity for training schools, and if you go back to what I said about innovate, it's probably time for us to move away from this and to think about how we can personalize, disseminate, and extend training over a long period of time. So we can completely take control of the way that we do our training, and that will open up so many avenues for us, as we're going to see. I'd also say the last problem with the way that we do, or another problem, sorry, not the last, but the problem that we have is the delivery focus. In schools, with most training, we talk much in the same way as I'm doing this now, but obviously webinar has a very different kind of set and you're here by choice. But the way that we push it, it's not really about the learning or the implementation. It's a person looking to actually express and pass on what they say, which is why with these webinars, I always have a one-to-one afterwards. Any one of you can come back so we can actually cement some of the ideas, the experience, and learn how you put them into context so you know how to do them. So we move away from just this delivery focus. A little bit of practice what we preach, because otherwise it would be hugely ironic. So think about the delivery of what you're offering. And then with that delivery, and this is probably the part that pains me most in everything that we do, and it genuinely does, very rarely do I see any training that's led by the values and ethos of the school. It's all about do this, do that, do that. It's not about who we are and why we do what we do. The companies that I've been fortunate enough to work with now, so much more is said about we're this, and this is what we're trying to get across. Some schools, I go and I speak to the teachers. I'm like, well, what kind of training are you putting in? How are you putting stuff across? Some of them don't even know their school motto or what it means or when they last used it or how it's actually celebrated. They're very token gesture, but they get all the requirements that are needed for Ofsted generally, right? But you have to think about training as well. If you're going to personalize it, make it small, make it piecemeal, and actually share it really quickly, well, you really have to think about what people want. And people really want to be on the same page. And as a school, in your structure, one of the key things that you can do to get everyone on the same page is to share, extrapolate, and to really champion your values and your ethos, because our values as educators, doesn't matter which school we're in, 90% of the time they're going to be the same. So you're really tapping into the core reason we got into teaching. You're really tapping into training that's going to actually fulfill me personally. You're not looking at just training because I know, we all know, we go for tick box training all the time. And we push tick box training all the time. Training online and away from the school institution allows us to really champion, push, and divert from that. And that's what we're going to be going on to in the next couple of slides. General offerings, let's just say that off the bat, you don't have to be the champion of every single item. I'm going to look at a couple of them with you now. These are, can I just check with my colleague, Sawa? Sawa, are you with us, my friend? Good to see you. Sorry, just if you're looking there on the items there, my colleague Blair Robertson normally joins me, but it's his wife's birthday, so they're off to celebrate. And so my other colleague Sawa Bashir has joined us today. Lovely to see you, Sawa. Even though you're coming up as Blair, forgive me for changing that. That's my fault. Do you have the list of the websites that we shared earlier that you can share with the colleagues in this as I go through them? So please get ready to share them. Colleagues, if you now just join me as I actually share my screen, what I'm going to start doing is I'm going to start looking at some of these external offerings, and again, just talking about what they offer and why they offer it. So the first one I'm going to bring your attention to is an item called Spongy Elephant. Now with Spongy Elephant, they have a great introduction to one kind of online training or several kinds of online training, but they do that what I call the nuts and bolts of some of the online items. So they will teach you, part of it's free, part of it's subscription, really, really good resource, how you can use VR, how you can use PowerPoint, how you can use Microsoft Sway. So really, really good to get your staff upskilled, because these are all tools that will help them teach online in a more productive. So really, really useful way of actually looking at different things and making sure that they are there for people to have, hold, and obviously continue. Another item, if you're looking to push different elements and aspects as well for a different focus now, if you needed to get those base requirements in, I'd actually say the virtual college is an excellent resource and place to go, because that has lots of different things. So if I go here and say I want to do a safeguarding course, for example, and you want to fill people's time during this here you'll actually be able to look at different elements and items from different organizations and items that they have for all the different courses when you are able to do the basics with them. So a great place to do the basics, and they have thousands and thousands of courses. I think they've had over 2 million learners in 10 years. So they really, really know what they're doing. And again, the courses there are very, very cost effective. And obviously, it probably would be remiss of me not to mention our own items. Now, our own items are really there for real teacher training and focus on teacher development. So what we do in the nature of our work is we try and make sure that people have entire packages where they get to follow and develop all their different kind of skill sets and needs for secondary and primary, for getting into a situation where you can take QTS, for getting into a situation where you can actually study everything from leadership to key stage 3 development and all the different qualifications going on with that. So they'll all be put up into the chat column for you, so you'll be able to see a range of those again and just go and play with them in your own time, in your own space. Please, 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 I hope I've gone through the first part there, and obviously some items, and obviously I'm going to share this presentation with you afterwards, and there's going to be a recording and other recordings after it. But what I like to do now is always really like to do this, just to stop for a minute, take a breath, and just share some comments. I'm on about a 30-second lag ahead of you, so I will just see them as they come through. But obviously, it's always really nice for me just to get a feeling for what people are thinking and how they're actually looking at things, just to kind of guess now, like what are the key takeaways you've had, or if I've said something that's of relevance, etc. Obviously, it's really, really good for now, and I'll be sipping water and hydrating before we get into the next part, where we'll be looking more at video use and obviously implementation as well. So please share any kind of thoughts and connections you have. It'd be very much appreciated. That's exactly why you need to have a way of actually following through. So later on, I'm going to talk about what is going to be benefit-led and 4-stage training. And the 4-stage training is exactly that. Number one is just delivery. We've got a lot of work to do afterwards to make sure this matters, this counts. So really, really thank you for doing that. That's exactly why we built this in this sense. Georgina, thank you for the comment on developing extended training. That's exactly what we look to do. We look to support with. Whenever I see a one-off training, I'm always like, where's the rest? It just feels to me like one piece of the puzzle. And there's so much that goes into making that brilliant. And I promise you this, a 5 out of 10 training session followed by 5 different follow-up sessions is infinitely better than a 10 out of 10 training session. Because the 10 out of 10 training session in and of itself, all it can do is inspire you. Just because you watched a great movie doesn't know you know anything about lighting, doesn't know how you're actually going to get to do different items with regards to sound, doesn't mean anything just because you watch something impressive. There has to be a thing where actually I'd rather watch an average film if the director was then going to have a moment with you after and say, hey, I'm going to tell you how we made that scene. Hey, I'm going to tell you how we did this. So thinking about that is really, really important. And I hope some of this is resonating. Debbie, I really like what you put there, ask what they feel they need. That's so true. It's just so simple. It's just like, what would you actually like? And when you're doing that, part of the magic is don't expect them to know straight away. It's kind of like, okay, well, look, what do you want? Not sure. Well, what's the areas that we're looking to do? What do you enjoy? Well, what would make you feel inspired for teaching? Again, it's our needs. It's like, what do you think would help you connect to the ethos of the school? What do you think would actually improve your pay grade? And, you know, these are all valid reasons to do training. Just thinking about all. So I really look forward to taking you into the next step here. And that is really about video-based training. Now, I'm going to share a link to a so could I actually ask you to kindly share the link now to the webinar recording? It's about 40 minutes long, when it actually explains why I go into detail about why video is so key in my development, and obviously taking my school to outstanding, you know, back when I was a head teacher, and then why I actually champion it quite a lot. But we'll talk about and look at that. But I just want to bring your attention very briefly, colleagues, to a wonderful just a thing. Just before I go into why video-based training, I want you to hear from a member of staff who had never done video training before, and I just wanted to see, this is a person doing their NQT. I just wanted to hear what they say about how video training improved their confidence. And obviously it's a huge thing for certain NQTs, but obviously it'll be different for different members of staff as well. But I just want you to have a look at this. Now, I'm just going to share my screen. Brings all the people back in as well, so don't worry about it at all. I feel like this is actually going to be much more fun this way. Sometimes the technology can't handle me trying to do different and novel things. Can you please let me know if you can hear me now? Very much. Just going to wait for a few people to join with that as well. And obviously, you see here with the technology, this is some of the wonder of it. We get into a situation where that doesn't come across in the way that we want it to come across. Yes, and welcome back, Lara. Thank you very much. So what I've done there is I've actually reset the room. It's actually quite a good thing about this app. You can't see it, but there's a triangular button, which is basically as dangerous as the triangle when you've had an emergency, when you've had a crash. And what it allows you to do is reset the whole room. So rather than trying to figure out what's wrong, it just allows you to jump out and jump all the way back in. But essentially what the colleague talks about is how recording herself and using video, even though it frightened her before, it really, really helped her develop and understand her relationship with her confidence and her relationship with some of her LSAs. So she'd be using video quite a lot to do that. And I promise you next time I do the webinar, I'll make sure it's a lot more smooth and better introduced than I just did it there. So apologies for crashing you guys out. But essentially, that's what I wanted to stress, because obviously with feedback, sometimes it's really, really useful to for me to tell you, oh, it's good, it's great. But obviously we want you to hear from people. And so if it's possible, could you please ensure that the colleagues get the video of that colleague talking about that, so they have that piece of information as well, so they can review it afterwards. And I'm sure that will be very, very useful to them. So I'm going to go back now to the slides and the presentation and the elements that we're going to focus on next. And forgive me, it will have restarted from the start just because of the way the obviously, like with the dramatic room set or room set of 2020. I'm just going to be moving across again to talking about what we're looking at now. The first thing I want you to think about when we're thinking about video training is video training removes a huge problem, and that is subjectivity. When you record part of a lesson observation, or when you record something to share, no one's actually going to have disagreement about what it was, how it was, where it was, and different kinds of things. Seeing is generally believing. And this is one of the main reasons that I champion and push video-based training. If you're using it in terms of delivering an item, it's very, very quick and concise. People can take it and digest it, as we know from YouTube, as we know from Netflix, etc. But also it allows us to capture ourselves and hold a mirror to ourselves very quickly. I cannot tell you the amount of disagreements, video observations or video supported observations have allowed me to just quickly nullify it. Speaking to a young member of staff, you turn your back on the class for 30 seconds. No, I don't. Okay, let's have a look. You use quite informal language because you're saying smashed it 15 times over. No, I don't. Okay, let's listen to the lesson. In that essence, you have to understand that people aren't, depending on how you implement it, which we'll come to, people aren't nervous or worried about this. People want to improve. I have never met a person who's like, no, I love them just the way I am. Every teacher I've met has got a desire and need to improve, as long as we approach them in the same way. And when we're looking at these items as seeing is believing, or taking that mantra of seeing is believing, video is one of the best ways for them to improve, because they will not know what they're doing. And that's the beautiful reveal of video. It lets us see what we're doing. And I'll talk about, and it's in the other video as well, but I'll talk about why I feel this works and how it works and how I came about it shortly as well. Now, video is also very concise, very quick. So I'm just going to give you an idea, now. Imagine this is a training video. I wanted to make it. I'm just going to show you how quickly I can record and push something out to you. Now, this is something that's free. I was going to come to it afterwards, but it's a good time to show. It's called Use Loom, and it's a Chrome extension, which you can add. I go to Loom. I am going to say to Loom that I want to record the screen and the camera, and it is going to ask me if I want to record audio or not, and which part of the screen I want to record. I'm going to record, and then I'm going to say, I'm just going to here, I'm picking the screen. It's going to start automatically. Hello, colleagues. This is the part where I'm using Loom, and this I'm going to share with you instantly. So imagine if I was giving you a training video on how to break a webinar and start a webinar really quickly and then use video. I do that, I'm done. Now, without having to do anything special or fancy, all I have to do is come down to the tick in the bottom hand corner. I've now said that, yes, I'm happy with that. And within the few seconds, I want you to go to your chat now, and I want you to just, without me copying and pasting or doing it, sorry, just copying and pasting, you'll see my video has instantly been made. I'm just going to stop for a second, and I just want you to pop off onto you. I didn't download anything, I didn't do anything. I just want you to click on the link that I just showed, and hopefully you'll see that I made that instant recording in real time. As soon as I press stop, it was available for me to share. That's how quick and easy video training can be to create. But as I was referring earlier to one of the items, that's only stage one, and we're going to be looking past that. Can anyone just confirm that I wasn't lying there, and that Loom did work and it was quick and easy, and you've seen a video of me there, just in case some of the colleagues were not expecting to do that. And I'll wait a few seconds until our rolls run. If you checked it and did it, or maybe I'm just in a room where I'm just messaging myself now. And so you see how quick it can be. Now, making the video, again, that doesn't mean anything. We're going to come to that because that's not extended training. Hold on, just one capture video there, it doesn't help us. But what we've built afterwards, we show you, and that actually helps it, but we'll get there. So you see there, seeing is believing. Now you've got a piece of me recorded forever, Debbie, forever, Laura, forever, Florence. That's there, and you can do it. And yes, you can use Screencastify, you can use QuickTime. We have our own one as well called GoVidigo, which I can show you another time, but everything can work that quick and seamlessly. Now, The other reason I love video training is because you can think about the human being as a video. And what do I mean by that? Well, the human video can create the video content as I just did. The human being, they can capture the knowledge like I just did. And the human being can give instruction in a video just like I did. And they're slightly different. Content might be covering the range of something, the knowledge might be looking at the specifics, and the instruction might be the how-to. So you can use them in all different ways. Moreover, video is a great way to respond. Just before COVID struck, I was actually living in China and Shanghai office. And one of the reasons I'm doing these webinars is I'm so happy to be back in the UK. We're not allowed to return to China at the moment. But in our office in China and with our staff in China, they don't text as much as we do. They don't WhatsApp as much as we do. They like to do video messages and audio messages. So they ping each other, quick communications doing that. It's not a culture that's really happened here yet. I like to do it. In fact, I like to do it so much that, we've got a staff team of about 80 people around the world. And I haven't written an email to anyone of anything more than 15 words in probably anything I want to explain in detail to my team. I quickly gather and compile everything into a video. I say it really, really quickly, rather than spending 15 minutes to write an email, say it in a minute or two, see if it's right, yes, no, go again, without having to correct and punctuate and this, that, and the other. And also for me personally, it's one of the things I like, and especially when I go back to ethos and values, I care about what I do. So I know that whenever I'm capturing something in a video, I'm actually passing on in the passionate way that I want to pass something on. So giving you some ideas on the benefits there of video training, creating video training. But one of the key things is, in our time, 3 to 5 years in particular, things are changing because of the nature of how much video is used. Concentration and memory and nature are changing. If you ever did a psychology degree, you did psychology A-level at the same time you would have come with something across Miller's magic number. The Miller's magic number was the idea of how much. I'll come to that in a second, Fran. I will come to that in a second. I like the use of caps drew my mind. It was like a headline there, so sorry about that. But Miller's magic number was the idea that people could generally remember, give or take, chunks of things, and chunks of things in between 5 and 7 things. So you could remember 5 or 7, really turns out to be syllables, but so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you could remember 5 to 7 things. When they do the same test now, and that was done in the 50s and 60s, when they do the same test now, they find that we can remember 3 to 4. Outsourcing our memory to our phones, to our computers, to. I mean, how many phone numbers did you remember when you were 15? How many phone numbers do you remember now? I think that's one of the clearest ways you can think about it. So just remember as well, the nature of concentration and memory are changing. Now you have to think as well in what's around us. Whenever anything breaks in my house, or whenever I want to learn how to use something, I've not looked at an instruction manual, I don't know how long, I will go to YouTube and be like, how to use the DX Recorder 7, yeah. And I will just look for that. That's the way. The boiler's broken. Richmond boiler, and that's the first thing I learned from YouTube. Anything's actually passed from YouTube. And that is not just me, that's a whole culture phenomenon. I'm coming up to 39 years old. People who are far, far younger than me, they will have done that from how do I do my English lesson, how do I do trigonometry, how do I play football, they did it for everything. So the nature of learning through video is huge. And I'll tell you this as well, when we do observations, the remote support that we offer from after their lesson. So the way our system's set up is you can record yourself off your phone and we can comment on it, which I'll show you shortly. But in those moments after a lesson where something's gone well and you see an a pre-service teacher saying, oh, I just did this and it really worked well and I can't wait to show the evidence, and you catch them, you catch that joy in the joie de vie and you really, really want to celebrate. And at times as well, you capture the other part where it's like, yeah, that didn't really work. I'm going to go back and work out why it didn't work in X, Y, Z and blah, blah, blah. But capturing that spirit has been really, really useful. And for our partners, the universities and the examining boards that use, or the awarding bodies, should I say, that actually give our qualifications at different levels, that's been revelatory for them because they've never seen the candidate in the way that we in schools see the candidate. They just see the candidate at the end in the assessment. And so using video in that way and the viewing in that way allows us to really, really give a whole different dynamic to what we're putting forward. And that's one of the reasons we've created, one of the things we've created. Observation is a very blunt tool. I will come at a time that suits me, maybe doesn't suit you who I'm observing, and I will sit in a room for 1 hour and change the dynamic of your room and make everyone uncomfortable, and then I will tell you how I feel it did. And that's what I had to do as a head until I ended up in all those schools that just had CCTV. And the reason that it changed it for me is I knew I had to make massive change to lead from the front. And so I was just like, well, I can't get everyone back for training every single day of the week to see how do you put in BFL, how do you put in AFL, how do I show them questioning? And I was just like, oh my God. But one of the things I had access to was CCTV. And so what I would do is I hook the CCTV up to YouTube. So I would record parts of the CCTV, put them privately up on YouTube, just sharing with the staff or sharing internally with staff, and they could see me in best practice moments all the time, putting myself out there and actually showing them, this is how I want to see it done, this is how I want to see it done. And then I found that those views, remember we only had a few dozen teachers in our school, and I just found that they were getting hundreds of views because people in my school were coming back to the same video. And that's where I became convinced. And then the change that happened within them became huge. And again, I was tapping into that YouTube popularity. Now you want to learn how to do X, Y, Z? Well, now learn how to teach. And we moved on from there. Well, I hope that gives you an idea, but we move on. Now, in terms of the types of video creation, obviously the one I just demoed and made for you was going to be a face-to-face. But as you saw me do a minute ago, and I'm going to do it again now just for ease of use, one of the other things that you can do quite happily is do just a screen recorder. So I could have done one, as you saw there, with screen and camera. But in this one, I'm going to use, for example, just the screen only. And so what I can start to do is I can start to actually teach something, and you'll be able to see me doing it now. And I will just be able to use it as a whiteboard. And there's so many items that just give you a free whiteboard or a free item where I can underline, or I can write, 1+1, whatever I want to do, and I can move on to saying whatever it is, and I highlight it, and I can annotate my PowerPoint, and exactly the same way. Again, I'm just going to show that to you now as well. I've done that, it's finished, it's over, and now I'm in a situation where I will just be able to share that again. So straight away back into the comments, you'll see again, you have here another Loom video where I've actually done a screen record. I just talked over my screen, shared it really, really quickly, and there you actually have. Now, the elements and the ideas behind that as well are the simplest. But when you move over into something that's a little fancy, something that's a little more concentrated, something that's a little more, I don't know what the word I would use is, make classy, sophisticated, is where you start to actually look at creating animations. And that is one of the areas where we focus very, very highly, very, very strongly on, because it allows people to see something that's just easy on the app. So again, at Guide, one of the things that we spent a lot of time and a lot of resource on was making sure that we had all or 19 items by animations, and we help you produce animations around what you're doing or what you're looking at. Now, I'm going to share with you as well here some sample videos just to think about the ways you can put things forward or the ways items are. It's 12 free videos just so you can have a peruse and have a look at the different items, the different styles of animation that come through in different items and different times as well. So you have that available to you. Just going to share it there as well. But you can look again at sample videos, animations, getting people's ideas, involvement, and getting items done through those as well. And then the last item that we're going to look at, or the last item that we're going to be sharing there, is probably more complicated, and you probably need your phone to hand if you actually want to do this. And that would be the elements that we refer to as animojis, or making animations with your face. I can't run a piece of technology that will allow me to do it at the same time as giving this presentation. I will pre-record one next time, that's remiss of me, but we've just seen how my technology used to try to do something new went wrong just a minute ago, and I don't want to risk playing another video for you now until I've worked that out. But essentially what an animoji allows you to do is to cover your face. And so you're in a situation then where you are a dragon or you are an octopus. If you go to your phone, if you have an iPhone, the easiest way that you find an emoji, I should just record on here just so you can see it. I'm going to harass one of my friends, unfortunately. I'm going to go to messages. I hope you can see that there. Just going to go to the messaging app. And then I'm just going to choose to respond to anyone particular. I'm going to actually do it to one of my daughters because that will annoy the hell out of her. Now, just here, if you've got an iPhone, you can see all these buttons down here. So you see this one with almost a little monkey-esque face? This will allow you now to have a character there. So I've seen this is brilliant for people who are doing stuff on TikTok and sharing items, etc., etc. If I go across, I can pick any different one, and also I can make an emoji of my own self. So there's my image of myself, and I'm going to record a quick emoji and show it to you. And I just want to see how animated the face can be. Hello, welcome to this tutorial video. We are going to be looking at a range of things today. And so I'll stop it now. Hello, welcome to this tutorial video. We are going to be looking at a range of things today. And you can change the limits and you can put them into different ways, etc., etc., etc. And again, obviously, like everyone else, I'm just assuming myself to be a much younger, better looking version of myself than I actually am. But then you can be all different kinds of things. And excuse me for bringing the tone down. I'm just going to put this down. Excuse my bad language as well. Like me, most CPD that is not based around the core values and development of learning is a bit poo. And then you can have that. Like me, most CPD that is not based around the core values and development of learning is a bit poo. And so you see there are apps that will allow you to extend that and to push it and to do it in different ways. So that's another one that I would highly, highly recommend when we're looking at that, is to look at the way that you're using different kinds of animation, because it's not just about changing the method of delivery and then changing the amount. Video allows you not just to stand at the front of the room and deliver it. Video allows you to be face-to-face, to screen record, to offer the animation, to offer the emojis. And then you can do that. And then as a last resort, you can start to then support things with documents. So you think about all those different kinds of video creation that are actually going to be available to you. It's not just a one-size-fits-all approach, and you have more flexibility. And remember, with animation, you can pick items that are the most important to you and make sure that they're solidified. And then you can back it up with all the other ones. And with emoji overlays, and this is one of the nicest ones with primary, and you never forget this with reluctant learners. Hey, Derek, I'm going to teach you what the school rules are today. Yeah, do you like that? You don't know that kind of intensity that you're coming across with. So when you make videos with emojis, and I've seen it done in some reception primary school, it has great, great powerful effect. Because sometimes some students have been in situations where, and we all know this, the intensity at which they've been met for one reason or another is one that has diminished the support that comes from it, and it doesn't have the physical nature that comes off us. You don't feel intense from a cartoon character in the same way you feel intensity from a human being, just because of the natural energy and flow that we have between us and the dance between us. As you all know, you go into a classroom, and as a teacher, sometimes you can just bring the class to life. And sometimes you can actually know that some instances happen, you can just completely flatten the class. But with the emojis in particular, and those, if you want to give little instructions, it's so much fun. Obviously, that's useful for teaching in the classroom as well, but we'll come to that. So now I want to talk about some more serious items. When you've got this idea now, well, video training may be good. There's different ways of recording video. We want to make sure that it's extended, but I want to look at here something that we call benefit-led training. So don't think of it as training anymore. That's my challenge to you. I want you to start thinking about it as benefit-led training. And it doesn't matter what you do at the beginning. All that matters is the benefit and the result. So if you stop thinking about your training as like, what am I going to deliver today? The whole point is, what was the result? So even in that interaction and that brief pause where I said, hey, what have you picked up so far? Starting the result. Will I have a one-to-one with you where I go into something in more detail? And with some colleagues now, I've had 3 sessions, where they're really looking at different items and really, really enjoying it. It's all about the result. We're trying to get you to a place, and until we've got you to that place, that's what we need to focus on. It's not really about how shiny or smart or clever our presentation sounded. So you're thinking about it that way, and then you're thinking about the way that we can use video in terms of capturing the knowledge and what we want to see in the best practice, but also sharing that video somewhere in between making the item and then moving on. But then again, what's the benefit? And how do we capture and prove and share that best practice and benefit as well? And that leads us to video improvement. If we're starting to deliver via video, and then we share video and people record video to prove the next step, the next stages, well, one of the most important and key features that comes after that is then where the end user can start to actually use lots of different video to tweak, augment, and refine. Now, if it was speedy and easy, in fact, it will be. If I share my screen, I'm just going to turn my screen share again. I'm just going to remind you all the way back to the webinar at the beginning. I hope you can see my screen. Right at the beginning of what we're looking at, where I was saying that this section here, remember, we're going to move into, and what I'm talking about here is where you're really starting to trial and refine, and you're thinking about using video to improve, innovate, change, and push those boundaries. So it's benefit-led training is really, really thinking about more and more and more to do with how we're going to make sure that what we've done works, and how what we've used, not putting ourselves in a situation where we're simply looking at the delivery and whether or not people may or may not have picked out of it. We're thinking greatly about that video improvement, and if for any reason you're in a situation where that doesn't work, you can think so much more about the audio improvement. Now again, gone on there, probably going to be a little over, probably only got about 15 minutes left. I know a lot of people have got other things to do. I hope it's been interesting so far, and obviously we're going to be sharing different items with you. I will be showing you how this all ties together just there. So please just drop on any ideas in the comments. Obviously there was a section there where I showed you the emojis as well. I thought maybe that's new to people. Showed you Lou, maybe that's new to people. But the key thing I want you to focus on is video is not video, some ethereal different thing. Video is created by you. Video is capturing you. Video is capturing your words. I didn't get into video because suddenly I thought, you know what? I think it'd be really good to try something new, maybe like you're doing today. I didn't do that. was fed up of repeating myself. And then I realized when I capture things in video, I didn't have to say it. Video is like referring to a point of yourself in time. So most important part of all of this. And I think, Florence, you touched upon it a moment ago where you talked about using video on video. The way that we've been really effective in what we do and why we have a really whole strong lay. And remember, anything I'm taking to you now, this is we do it in our way. We've made a piece of technology to do it. But before we had the piece of technology, we tried to use Classroom for it. We used OneDrive for it. We used OneNote, which is a brilliant piece of software. If you haven't really got into OneNote, and if you're a Microsoft head, then please use it. I'm a Google man deep down, but I have to say Microsoft OneNote is amazing. But the base principle of what we do is something called 4-stage training. 4-stage training is, it's kind of like how I get from point A to point B. Now, the first part of what you do that you're looking at is you're trying to give content and community. That's the kind of thing that you have to put into place. You have to have some good content, something that people want to watch, and you have to get them talking about it, using it, thinking about it, digesting it. It has to be something. And remember, we've been doing this for a long time. So I can tell you what it's like when you just do delivery. I can tell you what it's like when you just do community. And I'm telling you that in the ways, I'm going to show you the way to do it, where we have content and community. The next item is you have to encourage implementation. If you offer training and you don't actually say, I need to see you doing something like this, and I'm going to support you in the way you do it, it's going to be very, very little. Now, there's lots of different ways to do it when it comes to implementation, but you have to expect at least a quarter of your staff to do something with it. Why can't you expect all the staff to do it? Because you're making a rod for your own back. There's not going to be everyone that you hit first time with a piece of training. You have to build that culture in and inject it, but you have to have that expectation to know that in this 4-stage program to actually work, because once people start to do the implementation, it becomes a little bit addictive. It's just kind of like, actually, I can see if that was useful. Actually, I can honestly now say that was no good. Actually, I can say that worked here and that wouldn't work here, because teachers in and of themselves, and you forget it's probably more than certain other things, we are naturally researchers. Everyone's doing something a little bit differently in a different class and this, that, and the other. And so this part appeals to us. When you ask us, put something to practice, try it. Put something to practice, try it. See how it augments on something that you've already done. Think about those different items and how you push it. Now, the third part is probably the most important in terms of its power, and that is how you mentor. A lot of the development and improvement that happens in teacher training isn't necessarily because of how good the original material was or how well you implemented it. It's how you started to refine, iterate, be coached and mentored through it, to have that mirror held up to you to think about how you can improve and reflect. And then the last part here is where you think about the outcome and the reward. What was the benefit of someone doing it? From it being, well, I learned something. My class is very easier. I feel more empowered. I know what I'm doing a little better. All of those different things that actually push and I get a pay rise for doing X, Y, Z, or getting that qualification. You have to think about all those things and how they are really, really important to push forward as well. So that's the 4 stages. And it doesn't just apply to teaching. It's exactly the same as if you want to learn a forehand in tennis. So the first thing I'm going to show you a forehand. I've got to talk to you. I've got to enjoy it. You try a couple of forehands, and that's my implementation now. Then I kind of move your racket. I turn your grip, and then you hit in a few more. And then I start to coach and mentor you. I say, right, well, you need a forehand if you want to go to the right, if you want to go to the left, if you want to hit with topspin. It's not an alien process. And then the outcome for me is I'm better at tennis. And you think about that when you're thinking about anything that you do. We naturally do a 4-step process anyway. But when we push it to the next level. Now, probably in about 3 minutes, I'm going to show you how we derive this. Now, the key thing in what I'm about to show you is not what I'm showing you as in, hey, this is an idea. I'm showing you this is how we do it, and that goes and sits off the left. The important part is to think about the 4-stage training and how you could then do exactly the same thing in your own context. Think about how it actually works. So I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to log in, and I'm going to very, very quickly show you. In fact, I'm going to keep one side. So hopefully you're seeing my whole screen now, and I keep one side as a reminder of the 4 stages, so you can see them at any point. I'm just going to pop that across there. And so if I go to the 4-stage training, please hold me to it now. Hold me responsible. If I don't actually show you 4-stage training properly, then obviously I've let you down. So you've got the 4-stage training there. And what I'm very going to quickly show you what worked. Now you can do this in your own way. Obviously I'm going to be using our piece of software just to show it. But this is the part that's really, really important. When I jump into this, you're going to see here, I'm just signed in. Now, the first part is content delivery and community. And the way we did this, and I think one of the colleagues, I mentioned this earlier, I'm going to go to a qualification now. Let's say I'm doing my compliance items and I'm going to go to traditional safeguarding video. Now, here I've got my content delivery. I've got a 4-minute video, 21 seconds. I know I've got all the other videos, great. I've got video transcription, audio, and blah, 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 great. And then I can start pressing play and I can watch something. This means nothing. If I've watched something, it means nothing. It doesn't mean I've learned or done anything. I have to start putting community and a sense of implementation around it. So here we switch to assessment mode. And then what you see happens next is I will get a red dot pop up in my video just there. And when I get to that point in the video, now I actually have some sense of community and answering and interaction. It asks me a question, I put in my answer, but here's a sense of community. I can see what other teachers, other people have answered. Now the question always comes, why do you let people see each other's answers and this, that, and the other? Well, because if you think about it, just like you'd be in a training session on a training day, you sit around a table and talk. We want you to have the answer. And what we find time and time again is the first person puts something, the second person puts something else, and the third person then puts something else. And this is what we call content delivery and community all in one place. But imagine now that I have to prove something, I have to implement it. So I'm just going to go and I'm actually going to show an example of someone implementing something. And so I'm going to pick something that we all know, which is QTS and the standards. And so here you'll see the QTS says, standard 1, we're looking to set high expectations which inspire, motivate, and challenge people. And so what I can do is I can go into my workbook. I just have to extend that slightly because it thinks I'm on a mobile. And here you'll see, just as you would in a folder, I'm looking to do 1.1, establish a safe and stimulating environment. I put in all the different evidence. I record a video of myself and what I think. I've got the evidence I'd normally put in a folder, like an observation, but this is where it becomes more critical. And for those of you that are interested on video after video. So here, the staff member, and I've taken this from the internet because of GDPR, but here the staff member says in this video, I was walking around to keep an eye on the class and say positive things to the students to reinforce high motivations and expectations. And so what happens is from their phone, a member of staff is able to upload the video. And again, you won't hear the audio because I obviously we've realized that doesn't work. But in this section here, you have the teachers record themselves. They're going around the class, and without an observer being in the room, they're able to place a red dot on this part to actually feedback and coach. So where that stopped, and I know you can't hear it, but what's happening in the section here, and I'll make sure I refine it for the next one, at this point, there is feedback and advice being given by their mentor, asynchronous mentoring. So we've seen that they've implemented it and they are being supported. They're getting the idea through. Now, the third item I mentioned, and of course, this is probably the one that can be used in any method or methodology. This is where you coach and mentor. And that is where you allot the time and resource to book a session, to have what we call a catch up. And obviously for you, it could be a phone call, or for you, it could be a Google Meet, for you, it could be a Hangout. But on our system, you pick a time and a day, and then you are able to refine and mentor those things. But more importantly, let's say that someone was taking on a Senko role in your school, and you were in charge of actually making sure that they did it, and you were training them to it. You see here we have 11 different units, and so what we'll do is we'll pick 3 units, and what we'll do with that is we will pop it into a learning schedule for them. So if I'm just going to make this real, so I'm going to call this Thursday webinar group, and we'll let them train on Thursday. And we'll ask them to train on Monday, and we won't be training on Friday, but we'll get them to do some work on a Sunday. And what our system allows you to do, and again, this is that personalization and support. It's not about now go away and remember everything that happened in X, Y, Z. I set a time in which I want them to actually learn and follow. I create that schedule for them what they need. Now, remember, the process here is important, but the most important thing is you can use this system to add all your own training, and every single feature you have here can be added to any of your own training. And we built this with the idea, really, if I'm honest, of the quite socialist vision, I suppose, of and I'm sorry to get distracted there, but in the last item, what you see and what you have available to you is this path, outcome, reward, and to achieve. Now, the way that that comes about, or the way that that can be developed, is we can be in a situation where they can get qualified, or where they can get, oh, apologies, that web page has just gone down there. I'm just going to reload it. And we're not in Webinar Jam. We're going back to the guide. And essentially in that instance or that moment, one of the things that we actually have access to is they then have qualifications. They then have their final items. I'm just going to see if the web has gone down on me, and maybe that has actually ended my BBC weather. Brilliant. Nope, that seems to be slowing down on my end, so I apologize. I'll pull away from it for a second. Perhaps I've been on there far too long. But one of the elements that I've done there, I've shown you that hopefully you get an idea or a follow through or a sense of how you can actually support people through a 4-stage process. And the last part there was just in the idea of them being able to gather all in the workbook and be able to show it. And you want to have avenues and ways in which you ensure that that happens. You want staff to feel that what they've done has been acknowledged, it's been supported, it's been liked, not necessarily liked in Facebook, but you just have to give them feedback. So of course, if they're sending you a video and you want to get in the video and actually touch base with them, then it's really, really important for you to actually acknowledge what they're doing and give them a root for what they're doing to be acknowledged. And there's no quicker and easier way to do that than by doing it via video. Now that's the 4-stage training, and there's only a couple more minutes to go now. I hope it's been relevant and interesting so far. But the next items that we're going to be looking at now is moving beyond what you want to do with the 4-stage training, and you want to start thinking about the elements that come when you're implementing. Now that is all to do with considering what you're doing being a marathon. To the biggest mistake, and every single person I've ever spoken to after one of these sessions, before these sessions, always said, well, how do I do it? Well, how do you do anything? You start. The way that you start isn't by doing big mandates and posters across the school saying, now we all do this. It's you trial it yourself, or you trial it with the person you think is the best vehicle for this in your school. You start to push that out and you get 2 or 3 generals, 2 or 3 tent poles, 2 or 3 lieutenants. And I'm going to go into this now, and this is how I always did everything in my school, right? Because one of the things that happens in schools is, as you all know, you get siloed. Now, just imagine this for a second as your school building. And so you're in a situation where you're in the school building, and you've got a department here, Department 1, with my fantastic writing, and here you've got Department 2, and then behind it you've got Department 3, and you've got all those different items there. Now, what you'll find is generally one department is being absolutely amazing, and they're doing great things, and they're brilliant, and they're almost head teacher's pet or the senior leader's pet of what they're doing, and that's fine. But you have to remember that in those instances, you can avoid that right from the beginning, apart from just going to one and saying, oh, mate, great, we're getting that department to do it again, we're getting that teacher to do it again. You have to make sure that what you're doing is being crisscrossed across. So you look for the tent poles of support that you can expect from different departments and different people around the school. And then when you're starting to do that, you will, in the first, when it's about 3 or 4 people who are passionately behind what you're doing or who can competently do what you do, then you start to actually build bridges between them. So now you've actually got a spread across the school. I used to do this with everything. I used to do it with the behavior management policies. I used to do it with any new ideas. And then what you're trying to do is create a little fire or buzz around it. When you say everyone's expected to do this, you've just set yourself up for failure. When you let it cook, simmer, heat, and actually start to grow on its own and take on that flavor, then you've started to get the seeds of a culture. Right? So please think about your school building, your school staff, and think about all the parameters that you crisscross. Here I've talked about it in departments, but it could also be age. Here again, obviously I've talked about it in departments, but it could also be the experience that they have. So you've got younger members, older members, staff that have been there new, staff that have been there a long time, people from SLT. You can think about all the levels in which you'll actually put things across and how you'll differentiate and change all those different items. So I hope that gives you an idea. Think of this as a marathon, not a sprint. You think first and foremost of having a few people really support you. Think about how you extrapolate that from different ways and make sure it's across the school. Do not do it in just your favorite place. Or with the people. I know Jimmy will 100% be on board with this. You have to make sure that it's spread. Otherwise, it doesn't feel like it comes from the whole school. It feels like it comes down a pipeline. And what you really want is a wave of change to come in time. If you just kind of really select, well, there's one or two people who do it brilliantly, and it's not really being cascaded in any way, well, it's because you haven't started thinking about it in this way. And that's just my thoughts and how I put things across in schools and how I put them, the one we're supporting different schools to success. And there's at least, well, there's 400 schools that use our software, but in terms of long-term practice, we've worked with dozens of schools to improve their teacher training practice with different items. And this is something I say to everyone. Now, the next item there is to make sure that things are contextualized. And in being contextualized, what that really means is you have to include items that are not going to be generic to other people. So you want to talk about the special building in your school. You want to talk about certain staff members in your school. You want to talk about certain activities, ethos and culture in your school because it's a story and people want to buy in. And another thing that's really, really important is you have to be honest with yourself here and say, is the vehicle that you are using to spread this a trusted and well-liked vehicle? And normally that means the person. As I've said a lot of times, so you have to make sure that the person who's actually championing, pushing, responding, and exploring this with people is someone who is trusted and can be actually, trusted and actually believed on and relied upon in different ways. And again, another thing with the different levels is just think, what are you asking at the beginning? The first thing we want to do is everyone record a video. Just everyone record a loom. We did that together, and I did that, showed you that in like 1 minute. Everyone record a loom, and we see how it goes and what moves off from there. Everyone can do that in quite quickly. But again, just record 3 or 4, put jokey ones around, see what you cook and see what you build, and then go from there. And then you might say, okay, everyone record a 2-minute lesson summary. Okay, everyone record the best bit of best practice in the day. And when I say everyone, I just mean everyone in the group in the first instance. And you start from there and you cascade, and then you start to look at it and you grow. Now, moving on from there, what I'd like to show you in time, and obviously I've gone on for a long time today, so I won't be doing this now, but everything that I showed you in our system is built for the ability to create your own. So to be actually completely in charge of your training. And what I'd like to invite completely for free is if you think about some kind of training that you would like to implement in your school, I would like to personally help you actually build it. So if you, if you can share the one-to-one link, if you book a time and you actually want to see the power of how quickly we can benefit things and put them together. And again, it'll be as quick as it'll probably take 15 minutes where I actually explain and show you, 50 minutes where we do it. I've enjoyed doing it as well because we're capturing people's ideas on the screen and we're actually sharing things that are relevant to their context. One of the colleagues as well, he really liked the item, and I don't even know if I can show you it because it'll have his face on it for GPL. But we made him a portal in 10 minutes together. But I was like, what would you like to? What do you think will get your SLT interested? What do you think people like? And he said, I want to make a Liverpool victory portal. And I said, why? Why would that convince anyone in your SLT of the benefits of teaching and learning? And he said, because they'll pay attention. And we made the portal to be all about Liverpool victories, where this was just last week. And so he had a subject on there that was wins at Goodison, and another subject on there was wins at Old Trafford, and the futility of Project Restart and things such as this because Liverpool were going to be champions. And that's the flexibility the system allows you to offer. You've seen the 4-stage training done in a certain way on our system, and obviously we can have that made for you, personalized, you making it yourself as well, within 10 minutes. So if you take the opportunity to book that one-to-one, then I'd love to go through it. And remember, please, that I hope this has been useful and informative and that you've enjoyed it. I'd love some more of your thoughts. Remember, this is only stage 1 in a 7 webinar series, and my colleagues will be sharing some more of the items with you. I'm just going to go to that one as well. When you look at the presentation, I'm going to be covering different things in the next items. I hope this one was of use. But 7 of the ones that we're covering is developing staff post-COVID, and I hope we've looked at that. Next week, we're going to be looking at reimagining teaching qualifications. We're going to be showing you more innovative technology use as well, in terms of using different items of video, different programs, different things you can tell your teachers to start using. I'm also going to look at this where people are doing developing staff incrementally. This isn't really something that's done really well. We just kind of, like I said earlier, it's just like blunderbuss approach. Everyone in the same room, same things, same time, same expectation. We're going to look about how you can look at your finances and how you can actually start making content that you can sell and actually share with other schools. And we've got clients and customers doing that now. And this is probably the one that I think is most risque. And I don't mean it to be risque, but it's just one of the things I have to do. There are ways to get people to QTS and QTLS that are very unknown. Or should I just say not unknown, but lesser used. And then lastly, I'll be really looking at benefit-led training in detail. And hopefully you see this as a start and really cementing some of the grow your own aspect that we're trying to do here. Because at the end of the day, from one educator to another set of educators, I was really, really proud of my school. But the proudest thing I had in my school after we got the outstanding was that five years later, after I'd left, I left a year and a half, 2 years after we got the outstanding, and 3 years after I left, they got outstanding again. And that's one of my proudest achievements, not because of the statistic or the numbers or anything else, is because good practice is good practice. And if you can leave good practice in a place, it can change so much. And all of these webinars and all of these items are put together to actually empower you. Those of you, the 30 of you, 34 of you have actually stayed to the end. And obviously, I realize this has been a very long webinar, much longer than scheduled. I'm really, really pleased that vision with you. Of just really, it's just about giving you power, giving you the ideas, giving you the tools, and then you go and put them into action, because it can be done. It's like everything that succeeded was once someone else's idea, and we're just kind of following in those footsteps. And I'm sure loads of people have done everything that I did to succeed before, or have some form or idea of success before. But that's something I hope that you take with you and is of use to you in that way and in that sense. So yeah, that is going to be all from me. I thank you very much for staying with me so long, and I thank you, Sawa, for helping and assisting, and for joining the webinar and pushing it, and taking Blair's role so admirably. In fact, I'm going to tell Blair that you're better. So just goad him for next time on this wife.